All right. Hello again, adventures, and welcome to another exciting episode of Essential Essence 20. Join us as we look at these features, focuses, powers, and perks of the Essence 20 system to help you get the most out of your choices. So, today we are finally getting to the second focus of the field commander, the strategist. Quick reminder, if you do enjoy this stuff, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon to turn notifications on. All those things are super, super important. Now, let's talk about the strategist. It's been a little while, so let's quick reminder of how the field commander works. The field commander is exactly that. They are a kind of control-focused character, but they are a field commander. They are meant to lead from the front lines. So they kind of have this juxtaposition of deciding whether they want to do the thing that's going to be best for them personally, whether that's doing more damage or, defending themselves, or what's going to give the team itself the biggest benefit. And they constantly have to kind of juggle that. Their defining perk, which I also will sometimes call the table perk, is called Issue Command, which is basically they can sacrifice their move action to tell their team to do something, and if they do that, they get a benefit that helps them with that. Either they're going to get some sort of an upshift to whatever they're doing if there's a test involved, or if there isn't a test involved, they get to increase their defenses based on what they were told to do. And then the rest of the perks of the field commander tend to focus around making commands easier to give and more effective, and the ability to just kind of stop fights before they start. They are, one of the focuses is the ambassador. So there's a lot. They're very social based and things like that. And as a quick reminder, social is actually their highest essence score, followed by strength, and then speed is their third. Smarts is their fourth most increased essence score. So with that, let's talk about the strategist. So I have said this many, many times before. One of my favorite character types in any TTRPG ever is the commander style character. I was first introduced to it in 4th edition. 4th edition had a character called the Warlord, which was a strength-based leader. Technically, they were the healer, but their benefit was they had the ability to just give actions out to other characters. And so when a warlord was being played well, they generally weren't doing a ton of things on their own. They were doing kind of minor things, keeping the team alive, and then making sure that the people that had the biggest guns or, the strongest axe or whatever it was were the ones that were getting the ability to act and do a lot of cool things. So a well-played warlord was not going to be the person that was getting the final blow, but they were going to be the person that was setting up everyone else to get final blows and to look amazing. And it takes a very unique kind of player to be okay with that idea of, my job is to make everyone else look good. So when first reading over the field commander, I liked the field commander. The commands aspect was interesting, but it's a little bit light to be a full-on warlord style character. The strategist starts getting some other things that make it a very, very interesting character, to say the least. So let's start off at the beginning. At first level, you get a number of things. You do increase your smarts essence score by 1, and you can either train or specialize in alertness, culture, or survival. Alertness is going to become very, very useful very, very quickly here, so that might be the one that you want to focus on. But the first thing that we're getting as far as perks is called Strategize. Strategize is interesting. Basically, you can set a number of contingency actions as free actions up to your smart score. Each contingency action must trigger on a different condition. Only one of these contingency actions can be used to attack. So, the strategist can manipulate the action economy. What I mean by that is, with this thing, it says, by the way, just kind of going forward, I did pick up that mega bundle that had all those different TTRPGs. One of the things that came with it is the PDF of the second printing of the Transformers TTRPG. That second printing includes, I think, most, if not all, of the errata that is in there. So I'm sticking with the old version right now, despite the fact that nothing has changed in this section for that. But moving forward, I will be using the second printing because then I don't have to worry about not having errata in there. So that being said, I actually looked to see if they define it any more in the second printing. They don't. So because it is so undefined here, basically, you need two things for a strategist to really, really shine. You need a decently high speed score, which again, for the field commander, speed is their highest increased stat. It doesn't mean that it has to be their highest stat. You can lowball speed if you want. However, free actions are very useful in the base roll, and for the strategist, free actions actually turn into a bunch of different other actions. So you have to have free actions, and then you can set a number of contingency actions as free actions up to your smart score. So you also need a high smart score. However, starting off, like, you are more likely than not going to have a higher smart score than you are going to have of additional free actions, even at level 1. Now, remember, for the field commander, smarts is the least increased. It's the least increased essence in the base roll. However, because the strategist relies on smarts, that's the thing that you increase at first and then again at 10th level for the strategist. So that's going to help a little bit. And if you're planning on making a strategist, you're probably going to want to have a higher smart score, even more so than maybe your social score, which is very important for the role itself. So the way that Strategize works is you basically go, okay, I'm going to have 3 contingencies. If this happens, then I do this. One of those, and they say it right here, one of those can be I will attack. So that in and of itself is giving the strategist an additional attack because they can change a free action into an attack. That in and of itself is massive. However, they have to have a contingency, and it has to be a different contingency. However, as you get to know your team better, one of your contingencies can be, well, if this person attacks, then I will attack the target that they're attacking. And there's a pretty good chance that you're going to be able to get your contingencies. And that's the most important part about this Strategize feature. You have to understand what is going to be the most beneficial. If you've got kits or things like that that allow you to heal damage or something like that, if you're using your movement, you're using your move action to make your command, then maybe you want to make a contingency action of, okay, one of my contingencies is going to be if this person tries to attack me, I'm going to move. Again, being able to get the most out of Strategize is going to require you to really understand the system well, because again, the more free actions you have and the higher your smart score, the more contingencies that you can put in. eventually you're going to have to start getting creative with the things that you want to do. Maybe one of your contingencies is going to be something like, well, if I see one of the Decepticons aiming for one of my allies, I'm going to stand up really big and say, hey, over here, jackass, and have them try to attack me. So, yeah. This is it. For a GM to deal with this, you also have to be very, very familiar with how the system works, because due to the fact that Strategize is so open-ended, it just says contingency actions. Doesn't say what those actions are, just contingency actions. So you will want to kind of rein it in and make sure that they're giving very, very specific contingencies. Like, if, 1 second passes, I'm going to do this. I wouldn't allow that for a contingency, because that's something that is guaranteed to happen. Time just automatically passes. That's not a contingency. That's just planning an additional action. The entire idea behind a contingency is the idea of, I don't know what's going to happen, so I'm going to set up these contingencies to deal with various things that might happen. So yeah, overall, like, such an amazingly powerful, useful thing. Again, depending on how you set up your contingency, you can use it so that you don't have to worry about using your move action. You can use Strategize to make it so that if you can't use your action to attack for whatever reason, well, then you can use one of these free actions to attack on someone else's turn. And that's the other thing I really like about this, is the strategist, depending on how you set up your contingencies, a lot of your actions are going to happen on other people's turns. And I love characters like that. I think it's an amazingly interesting style of character to play. And it's incredibly difficult to implement in any tabletop RPG. The only one that I've ever seen do it really, really well was Open Legend, where for a one-shot that my buddy Elias ran, I created a reaction monk, where they didn't do anything on their... They very rarely, if ever, did anything on their turn. They just waited until enemies were attacking to react to them. And it was some of the most fun I've ever had playing a TTRPG character. So Strategize gives you the ability to do that. You just have to be real creative with how you do it. And maybe look at getting perks and other things like that allow you to manipulate things. Like, an interesting contingency action is to have a grappler or something akin to that. I believe there's something similar to that in in Transformers. And your contingency is, if this dude with a big melee weapon gets close to one of my guys, I'm going to yank him over to me. Like, that is a really interesting way. Or if you have they have a trait on weapons called, I think it's called Maneuver. So specifically understanding positioning and how much movement characters have, you could very easily go, if this character moves here, my attack is going to be using this maneuver weapon to move them to a point where they don't have enough speed to get to any of the characters. And that would create a massive, massive benefit for your entire team. But again, it requires you to really understand the battlefield, really understand the system well. Strategist is definitely, just from its first level ability, is definitely going to be a focus that I would consider like a high level player needing to play it to get the best benefit out of it. However, if you've never played before and you decide to take the strategist, I will guarantee you will learn the game very quickly, because strategist your Strategize feature is going to kind of force you to come up with ways to use your character in interesting ways. So, yeah, I need a drink. Yoink. All right. Moving on. At 3rd level, you get Follow My Lead. You can issue a command as a free action if you meet the terms of the command. For example, if you issue a command to fire and you make a ranged attack this turn, your command took a free action to use, not a move action. This is another thing that just shows how valuable free actions are. And when you combine this with Strategize, like, the sky is the limit. If you need to move on your turn, come up with a command that is something that you're planning on doing already. It's going to give you a benefit because you now don't have to sacrifice your move. You're just sacrificing a free action. And then obviously your allies are going to get a benefit as well. Like a simple way to do this, if you desperately need to move because you're just in a bad place, but you also need to give your ally something useful, well, you kind of have two different options. One, you can give the command get to cover, which basically I would interpret as if you move to a spot where you have some sort of cover, you will get a bonus to your defense. That would mean if you move that turn, well, then you're doing you're following your own command, so that's a free action, and you get to use your move action to actually move to a place that's better for you. At the same time, you can also issue your command as your or you can issue your command as fire on this person and then fire on them. That means you've used your action to fire, but you still have your move to be able to go. So again, there's lots of different ways to use Follow My Lead to get some benefits. Now, as you get to higher levels, I thought there was one. Maybe it's not. No, maybe I'm thinking of a different thing. I thought there was a thing that allowed your commands to be free actions, but it's not looking that way. The first rule of soldiering lets you issue a command for free when you roll for initiative, but that's the only one that I can see here. So yeah, this definitely becomes very, very useful. It also really kind of gets you in touch with your command feature and gives you a huge benefit for using it. And then the other thing that you have to think about is your Strategize. If using one of your free actions now for your Follow My Lead, well, that's taking away one of the contingency actions that you can have. But again, if you have more contingency actions than you generally have a chance to use, then it's not a big deal. Again, a lot of it's going to rely on you just understanding, okay, what contingency actions do I want to use and how do I want to use them? So yeah, again, very, very interesting, cool focus. Moving on. At 6th level, you get Watchful Eyes. You make an alertness test with a specific difficulty. One of the things I do in this is I never want people to be able to use one of my videos to basically avoid buying the book. So there will be certain things where I just won't tell you what the difficulty class is or the actual bonus that you get or anything like that. For that, you have to go buy the book. The books themselves have been on sale many, many times before. They're fantastic. I love the Essence20 system. Go out and get them. So that being said, for Watchful Eyes, you make an alertness skill test of a specific difficulty as a standard action. On a success, one enemy within range of your weapons suffers a snag on their first skill test on their turn. And then for every number your results beat the difficulty, you affect an additional enemy within range. This total doubles if your alertness skill test is a critical success. This is a massive, massive deal, especially when you combine it with Strategize and Follow My Lead. The Strategist in and of itself is one of the better designed focuses when we look at the idea of each ability seems to kind of feed on the last one and synergizes really well. So with Watchful Eyes, you now have a very, very useful thing to using your standard action for. You basically can give a bunch of targets disadvantage. Because it's an alertness skill test, again, alertness is a... who's you, what's it? Smarts essence. So again, you want a decent smart score. And it's one of the skills that you could increase when you take this focus at level 1. And this is why I mentioned it's a good idea to increase it. The higher your alertness skill, the better chance not only are you going to beat the difficulty, but it effectively has additional successes, compounding successes effectively, that makes it significantly better. And if you get a crit on it, which again, the easiest ways to get crits in this game is to specialize in some form of alertness that will work for Watchful Eyes. That will give you the ability to, anytime you roll high, you're going to be able to pick more creatures. And then anytime you get a crit, you double the number of creatures. So if you, are able to get 3 enemies with that normally, but it turns into a crit, that's 6 enemies. That's probably going to be the entire enemy team gets a snag, which is effectively disadvantaged from D&D 5th edition. They get a snag on their first test. And they're probably not going to be making multiple tests, multiple attacks and things like that. Generally aren't a huge thing in Essence20. I mean, they technically are. As you get to higher levels, you get extra attack, very similar to how you do in D&D. But bare minimum, their first test is going to be made with a snag, so they're going to be missing a lot more. And then with Follow My Lead, if you want to also do Watchful Eyes, well, you can't give a command that your allies can follow that will allow you to use Watchful Eyes. Unless you have an entire team of field commanders that are also strategists, which would be a weird team, to be perfectly honest. Just a bunch of Optimus Primes out there. Unless everybody is a strategist, you can't actually make a command to do Watchful Eyes. So you have to come up with another command in order to be able to use Follow My Lead. Or you can use your move action for your command and then use Strategize to give you a move action if you need it, and then also to give you an attack action, because Watchful Eyes is going to be taking your standard action. So, again, it gives you choices here, not right answers, which, again, is my definition of good game design. Anytime a game gives you a choice between 2 things, but one thing is obviously right, then it's not a choice. They're just giving you the illusion of choice to make it look like it's a more complex system than it actually is. So Watchful Eyes, there's going to be a lot of situations where that's very, very useful, but there's also going to be situations where it's in your best interest to use Follow My Lead and Strategize, and you need to use your action to get your Follow My Lead so you can also move, because maybe you don't have, maybe you're in a spot that's not going to exist when your contingency goes off, so you need to move right now, but you still want to get a command out there. So yeah, like I said, another really, really useful skill to use, or feature to use. So, yeah. Moving on. At 10th level, you get flexible directives. Once per scene, you can modify the numeric value of one of your other perks by 1. For example, you could increase the benefit of issue command to an upshift of 2, or a skill to a skill test, or a +2 bonus to defense for a turn, or use sync up twice in one turn. Basically, anytime there is a number involved in one of your perks, you can increase that by 1. Now, if we go back to Watchful Eyes, there are numbers involved in it, but they're the difficulty test and the number you have to roll above that in order to get additional things. So flexible directives would not work for that. But any thing else that has a numerical value, like they showed here, you can just increase it. It is a once per scene thing, so you want to make sure that you're doing it at the right point. The other thing, if a perk confers a numeric penalty, you can use flexible directives to instead decrease the penalty by 1. So again, it gives you a lot of flexibility to do a lot of different things. Flexible directives by far is probably going to give you the most bang for your buck when you're using it in when it's interacting with your command, because again, command, as long as you're giving good commands, is going to be able to affect a lot of different people, and especially if you're adding an upshift or something like that. That upshift, 2 upshifts is major, especially if they're specialized in the skill. That's adding 2 more dice that have the chance to crit. And then a +2 to defense. If it was just to one target, it probably wouldn't be very good, but you're giving a +2 to everybody on the field. That's a very, very useful thing, especially if maybe you have enemies that are using area attacks or are targeting multiple targets with different attacks and things like that. Being able to just kind of give a blanket, everybody be careful, can be very, very useful. Yeah. Moving on. At 17th level, you get Lockdown. Your attacks gain Immobilize 1 as an additional effect. Like Stun, the 1 represents the number of rounds the target has the Immobilize condition. So, this is something I found really, really interesting. In the second printing, they change how Stun works. I don't know if I just didn't read the errata on it or whatever, but I looked it up in the second printing. In the second printing, the stun condition is stun characters can't take actions, standard, movement, or free. Whereas in the original core move rulebook, it was only the move action. They just couldn't do the move action. And so Immobilize characters have a movement rate of 0 and cannot gain any benefits to their movement rate. Attackers gain an upshift 1 against an immobilized character. So Immobilize just, from the core rulebook, Immobilize just felt like a more powerful stun, which doesn't make sense. Stun should be more powerful than Immobilize. So we talked a little while back about how useful stun can be, and I mentioned, oh, well, it only takes away their move action. That's still very useful. Now it works the same way stun does in most other TTRPGs, where stun takes them out of combat. That makes it very, very useful. However, Immobilize, still very, very useful. Again, one of the things that Immobilize does, it stops them from moving. So anytime you have an enemy that relies on melee attacks, or just relies on positioning in general. If they're doing directional attacks, them being able to move to the perfect spot to get the right number of, or the most targets that they can into their cone or into their line or whatever they're doing. By immobilizing them, you're preventing them not only from doing that, but you're also giving your team the ability to get into spots so that they can't be hit by their directional attack. So lots of useful things about just taking away their move action, or taking away their speed. Sorry, they still technically have a move action, they just don't have any movement. So theoretically, if you were facing a field commander enemy that had a command-like skill where they could use their move action to use that, they still have their move action when they're immobilized. They just don't have a speed. So they theoretically could do that. However, the other benefit is that upshift. Upshift, again, is a massive, massive deal in the Essence20 system in general. Anytime you're upshifting, you are increasing the chance you're going to hit. You are, if you're specialized, you're increasing the chance that you're going to get a critical. And you're increasing the chance that you're going to roll high enough to get an additional degree of success and things like that. So lots of very, very useful things. And then again, combining lockdown with command, where your command is already giving them an upshift. Like if your command is open fire, and so you have them all attacking a single target. Well, because they're getting that command, they're getting that upshift. Well, if you're also using follow my lead, then you're going to attack too. You're going to immobilize that target if you hit them. So now they're getting an upshift from your command. They're getting a different upshift, which adds to it from the immobilized condition. And then if you add in flexible directives, you can give them a third upshift by just increasing that command. And again, flexible directives, theoretically, you could increase lockdown, but immobilize 2 doesn't give them 2 upshifts. What it does is it makes the immobilized condition last an additional turn. So if you wanted to use that, if you have someone like, let's say, for an interesting combat encounter, instead of trying to defeat the enemy, you have to stop something. Maybe there's a train or something that's trying to get into this place to do something bad. Maybe there's a bomb on it, something like that. I don't know. But it sounds like something Decepticons would do. So you could use flexible directive to increase lockdown to basically make it stop for 2 turns instead of 1, so that you don't have to worry about missing an attack and then that immobilized condition going away and the thing being able to move. You can literally lock someone down using flexible directive, lockdown, and strategize to just keep hitting them with this immobilized condition. So yeah, again, another really, really useful ability that synergizes massively well with so many other things. Like, just fantastic stuff. Moving on. At 20th level, you get Stronger Together. You gain a +1 to your defenses for every ally within 60 feet. As a free action, you can reduce this bonus by 1 to grant an ally within 60 feet +1 to all their defenses until the beginning of your next turn. So Stronger Together, another thing exceptionally useful, and again, it can synergize with everything else. With Strategize, let's say one of your contingencies is if my ally gets targeted, I am going to move so that I put myself in between the enemy and my ally, so they have to hit me first. Well, with Stronger Together, your defenses are already higher. And because it's free action based, if you don't want to use that contingency, you can burn as many free actions as you want. There's no limitation built into this to give a different ally bonuses to their defensive. The only max you have to worry about is you only have as many defense points as you have allies within 60 feet. So if it's a 5-person team, all of your characters are within 60 feet of you. That means you have a +4 to all your defenses, and you can give out 4 defense points to anyone you want. So again, this is another thing that really, really benefits from you understanding your team really, really well. The better you understand the team, the better you're going to be at, okay, well, in this particular instance, it's going to be in my best interest to use Strategize to protect this person, whereas I might want to use Stronger Together in this instance because I can't actually get over them, so I'm just going to pump up their defenses to try and keep them alive long enough for something else to happen. Things like that. And again, because Stronger Together has a numerical bonus, Flexible Directive can be used with it. So again, if you wanted to use Flexible Directives to change the +1 in your defenses to a +2 for each ally, that changes again with that 4-person party. That changes it from a +4 to a +8 to your defenses. And then again, as long as you have enough free actions, you can dole out those additional 8 defense points to anyone you want, or you can just leave them on you and turn into the ultimate defender. So, yeah, again, you're going to get the best benefit out of Stronger Together, specifically by just understanding your team and understanding the field really well. So, moving on to final thoughts. So, I cannot tell you how excited the Strategist makes me. Again, I like my warlord style characters, my controllers. I really, really enjoy playing characters like that in tabletop RPGs. And it's surprising how often it is difficult to play characters like that. Like in Daggerheart right now, there really isn't a control-based character. There's a few domains that have some control spells, but if you wanted to be a purely controlling-based character, you really have to understand the system really well and maybe take a few lesser weapons and things like that that give you some stuff like the grappler or the whip to be able to really play the control field. But the Strategist is built around that control style character. Strategize specifically is such an interesting ability and interesting feature that, again, the more creative you are and the better you understand the system, the better you're going to do. And then every single thing after that just seems to kind of feed into it. Compared to every other focus that we've seen thus far, the Strategist, I think, is probably one of the most powerful, and that's simply because it was designed to work with itself. It's very, very easy when we're talking about game design to have an interesting idea for a class or a subclass or something like that. And then as you design more things, you give them more abilities, but none of them really work together. You're just giving them a bunch of different choices to make, which can still be fun. But the Strategist is built entirely around the idea of you are going to control the battlefield, and every single additional thing that they give you is something that is somehow going to synergize and help something else in there. And I just find that really, really cool and interesting and a hell of a lot of fun to play. I have not had a chance to actually play in a Transformers game. I have GM'd a one-shot of Transformers, but I've yet to actually play in a Transformers game. If I was to play in a Transformers game, I would probably, like, Strategist is really, really making me want to play it. I'm also a fan of the Gunner, just because one of their focuses is like a gunslinger type character. It's actually called Gunslinger, and I love that kind of character. I made a gunslinger that uses spells instead of, guns in D&D, and I actually played them in the D&D Adventurers League. So I like stuff like that. But anyway, interested to hear from you guys. What are your thoughts on this strategist? Do you like the idea? Are you a little bit more interested in something that is a little bit more aggressive and gets to do more things on its own terms? On its own turn, I mean. Let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, again, it's going to be all for me today, and I will see you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye.